Iowa's News Now Sports brings you black and gold glory. Your all-access pass to all things Hawkeyes. This is Eye on the Hawks.
But the commonality is like, that's football. I know I got in trouble saying that in 14, but it is football. You just don't know. You can't predict it. And that's why I get I'm so amused with these programs in the summer. And it's an industry, and guys have jobs. That's great. I'm all for the economy. But you can't predict the future. You just can't predict it. You just don't know what's going to happen.
And that's why we do our show in the fall. Welcome to Eye on the Hawks, our Wednesday preview edition as we look ahead to the battle for the Floyd of Rosedale, Iowa hosting Minnesota this weekend. Mitch Fick, Owen Sebring, Mike Howell here. Thanks to everybody who's been following from the very, very beginning. And, of course, you can continue to consume everything either through the podcast venue, wherever you listen to podcasts. And, of course, if you're watching this live on Wednesday, we're on the Iowa's News Now YouTube page as well. We'll have all the video highlights, all the show, and all the interview segments from Tuesday media availability. Iowa's News Now Instagram channel as well. You can plug in there. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Eye on the Hawks. We start, though, with the top story, which is something we already really saw and assumed on Saturday. And, boy, we've been in a situation where we've had to see and assume and wait till Tuesday to get confirmation. But next man in continues to be pushed to the limit in Iowa City. Eric All, done for 2023.
Looks like his season's over. We're worried about that on Saturday, and the test confirmed that. So he's going to miss the rest of the year. It's just really unfortunate. And he's done a great job. Newcomer to the team, just a great addition. Such a positive guy, hardworking, great personality, and just really loves the game, loves everything about the game, not just the game itself. And I hate to lose anybody, and certainly feel badly for Eric in that regard. He was certainly adding a lot for our football team, and it's a tough deal. So we'll all support him in his recovery, his road back, and certainly hope all that goes well.
The unfortunate thing is misery does love company, because now he joins Cade McNamara and Luke Lachey on the sideline, which I guess, we've talked about how lonely the road back from those types of injuries, those long-term injuries can be. I guess the best thing you can say is that at least they have each other to support each other, as you see again that injury there to Eric, who not only has been such a wonderful piece of the offense throughout his time here in Iowa City, his short time, but great for morale. You heard Deacon even talking about him cracking jokes after a somber shot like that, and you see him smiling on crutches after the game as well. But he has just been everything you could want out of a new, experienced addition to the program and more. Such a fun guy to talk to, so philosophical and thoughtful in his answers. And, boy, you hope kind of the same way that Cade is still a leader on the sidelines as well, and Luke is still smiling at everything as well on the sidelines and being a leader and a captain still, that you hope Eric can have that kind of impact even as he's on his own road now.
Yeah, it's wild that these guys just came in, whatever it was, December, January, and both Cade and Eric made such immediate impacts in the locker room. I mean, people really love and respect those guys. Cade was a team captain from week one. These are really well-respected guys who know how to lead their teammates and know how to make an impact on and off the field. It's so strange how their parallels have gone so hand-in-hand between Cade and Eric in terms of going to Michigan, both doing well, both suffering an injury, didn't get a chance to play last year, both transferring to Iowa, both starters here when they come, and now both suffer lower body injuries that take them out for the rest of the season. Weird how those guys, their journey just continues to go hand-in-hand.
And the soundbite we heard from Kirk off the top, he was asked about 2004, which I think we talked about a little bit on Sunday, of just Iowa losing 5 starting running backs, and Sam Brownlee, who got a mention from Kirk in the presser on Tuesday. Just those are the days. And Mike, your thoughts on that? I mean, we were still relatively young going back in 04, but it feels like that all over again, of just, we hear next man in, and sometimes that becomes a bit of a tired trope of like, sure, you guys practice that way, and that's the philosophy. More so than maybe we've seen since 04. It's being put to the test.
It definitely reminds you of that, just the one position group that just gets decimated when you're talking before the season. Like, we're like, okay, this might be the deepest position. When you're talking about Steven Stylianos and Addison Ostrenga as the third and fourth, that's a pretty good tight end set. Now they're going to have to come in. I know Addison still, I don't know if he's going, when he's going to come back, if it's this week, if it's next week. They have to play 1 and 2, which those guys were NFL tight ends. At least I thought. Eric, coming back from injury, the way he played as a weapon, it seemed to me like he would have at least been picked up for a practice squad at the very least. It's going to be really big shoes to fill on that offense that needed a spark.
The good news is we'd heard a lot in the preseason from Kirk and a lot of other guys that Stylianos in year 2 at the program was making a lot of strides coming in from Lafayette, and certainly a veteran just new to the program. And he says he has learned one real key element and philosophy during his time in Iowa City that now he takes in as tight end 1 at tight end U.
Yeah, I think just the daily disciplines, like things aren't going to happen overnight. Coach Ferentz preaches that all the time. Like just take it day by day. Even this week, like they're like, to win on Saturday, we have to win today. We have to go out there at practice, compete, win, and we can't take plays off. Like, yeah, everybody's body's tired. It's, we're coming up with our 8th game without a bye, but like that, no one cares. Like we have to go out there and play on Saturday.
Steve's a very great guy. You never have to ask him to do anything. He's already doing it. Does whatever he's asked. He's a great route runner. He's also a phenomenal blocker. So I think he brings a level of that run game.
We haven't seen a ton of him, and we do have some highlights, but I know, again, that the program was high on Stylianos coming into the year. Addison Estrenga's gotten more and more talk. He's been banged up. Sounds like maybe good to be back for Minnesota. That route against Iowa State, that was Cade looking for Addison in the end zone there in Ames, but this was that final drive leading up to Max White's touchdown against Western Michigan, where it was 3 shots, I believe, or 2 shots, one to Stylianos, one to Estrenga, and then we'll see Stylianos' early shot before Cade was taken out there as well. But they've got reps. Yeah. Stylianos has experience. I mean, that's all you can really ask for at this point, right? As we're going to hear from Kirk here in a little bit, they'll take anybody right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, just a lot of these guys just don't have a ton. I mean, they have some, but they don't have a ton of meaningful Power 5 college football reps. You have Stylianos, who's played at Lafayette, an FCS team. You have Hayden Large, who maybe we'll see at tight end a little bit, as we found this week. He played a lot of tight end at the NAIA level, and these guys do have snaps with Iowa, but just not a lot of targets. I mean, they just haven't been out there for a long, meaningful drive, a lot of game action. So that's the main thing that does worry me with that tight end spot right now. Because as I said on Monday, I just don't quite have the same level of confidence in Stylianos and Pascuzzi as I did with Eric All stepping into that position. So I could be dead wrong, and these guys could come out there and really light the world on fire from game 1. I'd love to see it. I mean, Steven, too, seems like a really nice kid who has the best intentions, and but it'd be great to keep that tight end U legacy running with just another guy who's able to step in and prove himself that he deserves an NFL roster spot. But they've got to really prove a lot in these coming weeks.
It's unknown, but I mean, you mentioned it. Hayden Large, the pride of Hudsonville, Michigan, coming out of Unity Christian High School, played at Dordt, was a really good tight end for Dordt. And Owen asked Kirk about, does this kid who's really turning into a nice fullback now get some more shots at tight end coming up in the future?
No, he's got that flexibility. He's certainly, I mean, we're out of guys, so he'll definitely get work there. So he's probably one of the 4 guys getting work, and he's a smart guy, so he can do both. And but they're not like the 3 guys that weren't playing or were playing. I guess that's kind of the difference right now. So we're just playing catch up in that regard. And to your point, he played fullback more the other night. We ended up using that personnel group a little bit more than we probably anticipated. I thought he did a really nice job that was really his first extensive playing out there, and really pleased with what we saw.
Yeah, we talked about it on Monday, too. He had a key block, Hayden did, on that long run for Leishon, which was the longest run Chad Lysko pointed out, not just since Tavian Banks in 97, but that's the longest run of the Kirk Ferentz era, 82 yards. That would be it, right?
Wow, okay.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that.
That is a lot of yards, 82. I mean, it's
82
not
is
minimizing
quite
that.
a bit, yeah. It's wild to think about. Boy, what a fairy tale and quintessential Iowa story, wouldn't it be, if Hayden Large goes off in one of these games and all of a sudden your fullback who was a tight end has to get moved back to tight end, this guy who kind of gets overlooked coming out of Dordt, and all of a sudden he becomes a key contributor, and his name's Hayden, and he has no ties to Iowa, but still has, I mean, we covered all that back in August. It'd be something. It'd be, as you heard from Kirk, they'll take anybody right now. It sounds like we had somebody ask kind of intriguing question in the comments.
Yeah, we had a commenter in the live stream right now ask a question. I also have a question after this, but let's get to this first. Charles asked, like, who else is looking for Ragaini or another wide receiver subbing in on traditional tight end routes in the Brian Ferentz offense? So I don't think he means, lining up as a tight end, but maybe add another receiver, and instead of like a tight end running that corner route or a drag, it'd be, a receiver being the first target instead of a tight end.
Yeah. I mean, we saw Ragaini get a few touches on Saturday. He was the guy who broke that streak of no wide receiver catches the previous week. So he got a couple of catches. I'd imagine that his production is going to go up. I could see Vines even. I mean, just because Deontay Vines is, a little experienced at Iowa, and he's got more time, than I could see his touches going up.
You got to imagine the Minnesota defense is just going to stack the box. It's going to be one of those low scoring. Each team's going to try and run the ball. So I feel like you have to try and get it out. We've been saying it every week, but this might be one of those games where there are more receiver routes that are first targets. So my question is, with all these injuries to Cade, Eric, Luke, and the two running backs who've been in and out, like with all the talk about the 325 nationally, and that's kind of like a forgotten story locally, like because I feel like it doesn't really matter at this point. But does that reshift like your guys' opinion on this offense? It ranks in the bottom on almost every category. Do you give it a little more leeway?
I mean,
I think you do, but
you can, and maybe you could, but I also am like, I was not the only college program that deals with injuries. I mean, guys go out from programs all the time, and that program is able to recover. Certainly, you do have to give a little bit of grace when it is a guy like Deacon Hill stepping in, but especially at the quarterback spot. I think first and foremost, that quarterback position is a big one that, when there's somebody new that's stepping in, you have to give some grace there. But overall, I mean, injuries happen everywhere all the time, and some teams are able to recover and they're able to do it. So I don't think that should be just a total excuse for him.
I mean, my feelings about the 325 thing are pretty well documented. Kirk has said it, and I was reminded of it going back and watching old Iowa-Minnesota games ahead of this. I don't think they really care about the numbers, really. And now they're in a position where that mindset and philosophy, I don't know if it benefits, but really now you really don't have to worry about it because you're just trying to find your paths to a victory however you can. We talked about the lack of Power 5 experience and FBS level experience for some of the guys in the tight end room. Deacon Hill, I think we sometimes look at, well, he was at Wisconsin, so he's got that, but, missed so much of his final year of high school because of the pandemic. I mean, we're watching him. He's now 11 and a half quarters into his first meaningful football since he was 17, 18 years old.
Basically, that's a junior in high school. I mean,
big gap.
Yeah. Senior year, he only played a few games, so
And we'll talk about a little more about that quarterback room here after the break. But I think that's something to keep in mind. Would we love to see 20 extra percentage points on his completion rate? Absolutely. We'd like to see him not overshoot wide receivers, sure. But I think, and it gets tougher as you get into November and you're going into a rivalry game against a Minnesota team that's probably a little better than their 3-3 record. That, you just have to kind of understand a lot of these guys are getting thrown into the fire. It is next man in. You get ready for those situations, but you're seeing live ball for the first time either ever at this level or for the first time at any level in a good long while. And there's going to be some rough roads. You're going to have some from 6 for 14s and some scenarios like that. That's the evolution of the game live in it.
Totally. I just can't help but think, 5 years down the road, we're going to look at this team with this defense who's been getting better, it seems, which sounds crazy, every single game, and be like, man, if they just had an average offense, this could be a top 10 team. And at this point, 6-1 Big Ten team probably is only 24th right now. I know I'm thinking about these national storylines when it really doesn't matter, but I'm trying to think like what could change, and I think me personally as a fan with all these injuries, I'm not going to think back and say what could have been. It's more like, wow, they overcame so much injury. So maybe splitting hairs there on, a fan's look at the view, but that's just
real quick before we take a break, and there's a conversation to have after that too. I was watching that 2009 Iowa-Minnesota game where Vandenberg's in for Ricky after he went down, and I forgot that offense, aside from getting a Brandon Wager touchdown where Minnesota blocks the extra point and a couple field goals, like that was a 12-0 Iowa win that with the backup quarterback. No tight ends caught a pass in that game, by the way. I think James went like.
Was Tony out that
He
game?
might have been Reisner. I don't know what his, but DJK had 7 of 11 completions to him, and I think Marvin had 1 and Trey Strauss had 3. So it was one of those where it was complete less than half your passes. The running game really was non-existent. I think Adam Robinson had maybe 1 big run. Other than that, they were kind of bottled up, but they won because they had that defense and the offense just kind of did enough. The Orange Bowl was kind of the same way. They had a couple big touchdown. It was very reminiscent of like Utah State, of a couple big drives to open the game and then just kind of like punt, 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 punt. There was a fumble, I think, and then
That last
it all worked
pass to Reisner almost went for a touchdown.
yeah. So lots of stuff there. We'll talk more about the offense and a question maybe that's out there. I'm not sure. I've been trying to kind of keep my head in the sand a little bit too, but we'll talk about that after the break.
Better sleep means better morning. Start your morning waking up on a Restonic mattress. At Corcoran Furniture, we are Delaware County's largest Restonic mattress dealer. We have great prices on Ashley Furniture and the largest selection of Restonic mattresses, featuring the Marvelous Middle, giving you more support where you need it so you can sleep soundly. And it's made for you right here in Iowa. So if it's a crossword, coffee, or the morning news, let Corcoran Furniture help you start your morning off right. Visit Corcoran Furniture in Manchester or shop online at CorcoranFurnitureManchester.com.
I think we're going to have to take Owen to Corcoran after the show. He let out a big, we were talking, it's just one of those fall days. We're all a little middle
rainy.
of the week. Yeah, I'm tired.
Stretch.
I'm tired.
Chilly. Ooh, can I actually ask a question before we move on? Off subject?
Go ahead.
Okay, this is kind of a hot take going around the state of Iowa right now.
I need you to put those fingers down.
Are you going where I think you're going?
I think I'm going where.
Okay.
So, we are 3 gentlemen who've lived pretty much 90% of our lives in Iowa. A little time in Michigan, a little time abroad. I think you've
Mine's
been
100% Iowa.
Yeah, 100% Iowa.
I don't want to say unfortunately, but I wish I would have moved
How
somewhere
dare you.
for a year or so.
It was only within the last few years that I even heard anybody speak of chili with a cinnamon roll. But now it's
You've been
being
following
pitched,
Chris Hassel on social media.
now it's being pitched as like this Iowa thing, like, oh, you'd understand if you're from Iowa, chili with cinnamon roll. I'm like, I've been in Iowa. I've never heard of this until the last few years. Are you guys familiar with this? Did you eat
We had
this?
it for lunch like once or twice a month in my school district in Fort Dodge.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever had them together here. It was a thing that I heard more based out of, I think it's a big Cincinnati thing with maybe like Skyline, right? But
That was the debate.
I fully
last
support
week
the idea.
When Iowa State
Bring
went to
them together.
Cincinnati, which one was the better chili? Chili with cinnamon roll or Skyline chili? That was
That's what
on
it was.
floating on the Cyclone side of things.
I got you. I love them both. Why not bring them together?
So I didn't like chili growing up, and now I do. I was a really picky eater. Don't want to talk about it, but so I
No,
would
let's table everything.
I would always just eat the cinnamon roll.
Yeah.
I think it's still weird if you're dipping it. You're in chili.
So you
Some
do eat
people
them
do that.
separately,
Yeah, they're always. The photo I've been seeing is in the chili.
like on top of it. Yeah.
No, it's always to the side, and you can dip if you want. I feel like you're crazy if you do,
Weird.
but you eat it separately.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a dessert to your main meal.
I see. Okay, that makes more sense to me, I guess, even though I still have never seen those two together until the last few years when it became a Midwest versus everybody meme.
I think it's just a select school districts actually have, because mine did, and I know I've been reading on Twitter like
They have school board
some,
meetings.
yeah. I thought Cedar Rapids public schools did, but I know you went to Xavier's, so maybe that was a little different.
I don't know. We had Crispitos. That's all I care about. I do remember.
Bougie food are you eting over there?
I do remember jokingly asking. I think it was when Matt Nelson was being recruited, and I was out of state. But because Kirk went to Xavier to visit or something like that, and I asked, "Are they serving Crispitos today?" And I had somebody like, "Yep, Crispitos." I'm like, all right, that's the A food. That's what you lead with.
All right. Glad we got to that.
So
Carry
yeah,
on.
for those of you that are still with us, thank you. We'll continue confectionery talks after the break, after the second break. So Kirk was asked about this yesterday, and it wasn't necessarily about whether or not he's considering a quarterback change, but more about the gap between Deacon Hill and Joey Labus. Joey, of course, starts the Music City Bowl, plays fine, had a touchdown on a screen to Luke Lachey, but Kirk made sure to put to bed any sort of maybe rumor out there that there is a change being considered with Deacon completing less than 40% of his passes right now. Here's Kirk's answer to just about the gap between QB1 and QB2.
I'll just say this. I know that discussion floated out there last year, and I think, I hate to say this in a negative way, but I think we all saw, when Peters got knocked out, we saw maybe why we were playing Petrus. And, I went through that discussion last year. I mean, Petrus was our quarterback in 20. It looked pretty good with him playing back there. Offense is a team thing. It takes a lot of things to go together to make it work. Defense is the same way. I mean, it's really a lot of intricate things that work together or don't work together, and it's a very delicate thing. So, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But, I mean, right now it's clear that we have a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and then we'll just kind of go through there. And if the gap closes at some point, we'll go the other way. But I don't foresee that right now. I'm going to start that wildfire. I don't know if that one's out there right now or not. I don't really pay attention to what's being said, but like right now, Deacon's our quarterback, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I still don't think that it is out there too much. I mean, maybe people are talking about it. Maybe you guys have heard it, but I feel like it's, even though Joe Labus did start in the Music City Bowl, it's not like he had like, whoa, he really blew the doors off the place.
He did fine, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know. That's why I kind of threw this in the show, because like I said, I haven't really been paying attention on social media this week, trying to be better about that stuff. So I didn't know if that was out there. I also don't know what the reaction was to that, because clearly there's a way you can take that. We've had a quarterback transfer because of comments like that before.
I argue a couple quarterbacks transfer.
Probably. I guess I didn't take it as the internet probably was able to take it and like run with it as a slight to anybody in terms of what they were. I think again, like Kirk said, there was a discussion last year, and Brian infamously said, "What's the upside to a change?" And
I think last year and this year are like completely
they're
different.
very different.
Like
absolutely.
I was one of the ones saying like, oh, what the heck? Like he's not doing much.
I mean, Spencer Petras had 3 years under his belt. I feel like feel like overall people are just like maybe a little bit okay giving Deacon Hill a little bit of a grace period. Like
that and
they know he's new.
Deacon's made some nice throws. I mean, like what opportunity? I think it's a lot of just, and I don't want to say people. I don't think a lot of people were calling for him to be benched. But when you look at a box score and you see 35 yards or 36 yards passing, and you're like, wow, this passing offense didn't do anything last week. Mm-hmm. You're like, well, maybe they should be looking at it, but I don't think anyone realistically thinks, oh, I need to see Labus or bench Deacon. Like, I don't think that conversation's going on.
It was Doctorman who was asking the question, and he didn't ask it in a tone or any sort of way of like, hey, are you thinking about? I think it was just more like, hey, Joey's been hurt for a little while, just wondering what that scenario is if things really go sideways. And I think Kirk just, after a year, almost 2 years really, hearing that talk constantly about Spencer and Alex, I think he just kind of wanted to nip that in the bud. Yeah. I don't think, like I said, and going back to Deuce and whoever else, I don't think he was ever trying to like disparage anybody. I think he was just, it's Kirk. He's pretty blunt in his assessments of things, and sometimes those, if you're listening the wrong way, can come off the wrong way.
I'd be interesting to see moving forward. I think last week they obviously had a design that we're going to run this bowl. And we're not going to, I don't think they threw a pass in the fourth quarter, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just going to see if they can stop the run. Mm-hmm. And really they could, there were some times where they could, but 200 yards rushing shows that they can't. It'd be interesting to see if there was like, okay, Wisconsin, this is probably the biggest game in the Big Ten West. I wonder against Minnesota, Northwestern, if that's going to be the game plan moving forward, is just run it as much as you can. I think Minnesota and Iowa are going to do the same thing, to each other.
We'll talk about that too. They are kind of mirror images. Ferentz and Fleck both really have kind of the same philosophies when it comes to that. Also with Deacon, you look at Michigan State, he's getting thrown into the fire when Cade goes down. So that's kind of, I'm not going to say it's a wash, but it's, hey, like, get through this how you can, the best you can. Then you've got Purdue, which is his first start, where he's not putting the ball in danger. He's just not putting the ball, in most cases, anywhere near the guy who should have it. And then he goes into a situation in Wisconsin where it's his first road start. It's a place that he knows well, so it's kind of a home start. He loses his main receiver early on, and then it's, okay, like, we're going to limit what you do because, you've been thrown a curveball, and also we're finding some success in the running game. So he's had 3 very strange scenarios to get those first reps in 3 years. And, we'll see. Minnesota could be the first opportunity, knock on wood, the first kind of semblance of normalcy he could have in a football setting, because it's going to be start 3. He's back home. Maybe the butterflies are out, and now he's got, unless there's another injury, at least a good grasp on who he's going to be throwing to.
He was very close to, even though he didn't throw any interceptions, he was very close to
There's
two
that weird
interceptions.
pinball one, yeah.
There was one that, like, I think maybe it was first quarter they threw, got deflected up in the air, and it, like, just went off of a Wisconsin guy's hands, just dropped it. And then I think it was fourth quarter when it was like, it looked like I was sure it was intercepted by the defensive lineman, I think.
Was that the one that got
hit the
battered
ground,
up?
yeah.
It hit
And they had to review it, and it got over.
On the third replay, I thought he caught it, but on
Yeah,
the third
It
replay,
was
I'm
close,
like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
They had that back, yeah,
But
for
anyway,
sure.
so he was closer on a couple of them.
Well, it's no one else is coming back in terms of injury, at least the three that we talked to. So Eric All and Luke Lachey. Luke Lachey, it does sound like could be back for the bowl game. More confirmation of that from Kirk that he's going to be trying. But we're turning to the injury report now. Like we talked about earlier, Addison Estrenga sounds like maybe be again. Anybody healthy, come on, throw on an 80 jersey and we'll take you out there. Jazz Patterson had the one snap against Wisconsin. Sounds like he's kind of in the same boat, maybe back closer to back than Addy. Y.A. Black, who's somebody we're really keeping an eye on, late in that fourth quarter kind of got maybe rolled up on a little bit, had a sling on at the end of the game. Basically, it's a we'll see situation there. They really didn't say a whole lot else about that. The only Minnesota guy on the Iowa roster, he would love to be out there for this
big
one.
time.
And then, a couple weeks ago we were talking how Deshaun Lee was kind of categorized as probably not being able to be back this year. Sounds like maybe he's in the mix to still coming back from something, but a heck of a lot closer than being out for the year. TJ Hall sounds like he'll be out. He was doing a great job on special teams. But, DB depth, we'll see how that goes because you still got Devin Hilson out of Des Moines North there, and then a couple other guys as well that are going to need to be stepping up. But boy, it would be great to get Deshaun Lee back. We've waxed poetic about him quite a bit already this year.
Yeah, just, injury issues. I'm curious to ask, because we keep talking about, what is it, the 04 season, the Sam Brownlee season. Why is that the season that people kind of go to with running back stuff and not the 2012 season?
Because 2012 was 4-8, and they won the Big Ten in 04.
Yeah, that's probably
why.
They still had a lot of success.
2012 was wild. That was, and their two Big Ten wins were against Minnesota, where they ran a flea flicker to Jordan. I was at the two Big Ten wins. That's the only reason I remember them so vividly. And then they won in double overtime in a slop fest in East Lansing against Michigan State. And I think that was Kirk's 100th win at Iowa. But that was the same thing of just that was, and Mark Weissman got hurt in that game too. And there was almost no passing game. I think the best play was a streak to Keenan late in that game to set up maybe a time fielder, or did something, but I think that's why so many people jump to 04 because that's the
Try to forget 12.
best case scenario. Yeah,
I only remember that one because I covered Barkley Hill a lot in high school.
Sure.
And I remember it was like, a lot of excitement, like, hey, Barkley Hill's set to maybe plays a freshman here. Then he got injured on, was it the final day or final play?
It was at Kids Day. We talked about
Day.
that when Cade got hurt. That's the first time really that there's been a major injury or even any significant injury in front of a crowd like that, because that was right before I moved away. I'd covered that, and that was probably 2 weeks after or before I moved, and watching Barkley Hill go down. Yeah, talk about a guy who just couldn't stay healthy. Didn't he end up as a linebacker at UNI at some point?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, our focus shifts now from the Hawkeyes and the Panthers for a little bit to Minnesota. Again, the Golden Gophers coming in 3-3, 1-2. In the Big Ten, they have that win over Nebraska in that opener.
Yeah,
right?
which they could have lost. That game was, Nebraska was in control for most of it.
Yeah, and that was the Jeff Sims era there for a little bit. And boy, Daniel Jackson's toes maybe still with the catch of the year so far in the Big Ten. And then the Gophers have losses to a couple teams that could be in the playoff in Michigan in the conference, at North Carolina in the non-con, and then also, again, blew that big fourth quarter lead to Northwestern in Evanston. But you see there, putting up not a whole lot better than the Iowa offense, just under 22 points a game, 10th in the Big Ten. Darius Taylor, and we'll see whether or not he's out there. He's missed the last couple of games, but what a 4-game opener for the freshman out of the Detroit area. 532 yards, still one of the best marks in the Big Ten. Again, kind of listed as a game-time decision. He's missed the last few games, but it's Minnesota. They've always got running backs there. Bryce Williams has been there, I think, legitimately since 2018. He's been there for a while. Sean Tyler, the Western Michigan transfer. They've got Zach Evans, too, who was a prospect that they were really excited about. So they've got a stable of running backs for sure. And then Ethan Kaliak-Manis, I'm proud that I spelled that first try. Didn't have to look at spell check or anything. Nailed it. 888 all-purpose yards, 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's had a bit of a rough go in the passing game as well. But again, it's Minnesota. They got hog mollies up front. Brian Callahan is one of the best O-line coaches in the country, a great recruiter there for the Gophers too, been with the Fleck regime since the days in Kalamazoo, and they're always going to have running backs. Sebastian Castro, Joe Evans know fully what is on the table when they go up against the Gophers.
It's almost the same thing. Like this philosophy is the same. They want to run the ball, and they want to oppose the will as well. So, yeah.
Does that help in preparation? Something familiar in the building you go up against now?
I think it does. It should help.
Sure.
It should help. It's something we see, so it should help.
They're really good at, like the basic things, like fundamentals, just really good in the run game. Those guys they're huge. They're massive dudes. I don't know what they're feeding them in Minnesota, to be honest with you.
Same thing here, yeah.
Yeah. But those guys have always been big ever since I've been here. Like 2 years I played. I'm going to butcher his last name, Falele, which he was like 400 pounds. But, I feel like they just always keep plugging guys in there. So that'll be a challenge, just, being good at our base fundamentals, just getting off blocks and being able to play the run.
And so you didn't hear the question that I asked Seb to start, but it was basically, again, like we talked, Iowa and Minnesota's offense are trying to do really the same thing: control tempo, control the run game, and work that time of possession. Obviously, the defense for Iowa coming off maybe the best performance all around they've had all year against Wisconsin, knocked out Tanner Mordecai really as much as you could, kept Braylon Allen as best in check as possible. I mean, Braylon got his every once in a while, but, starting from that fourth down, attempted a conversion early, and Cooper sniffed it out. I mean, Iowa's coming in with a lot of momentum. Again, we got to see what YA's situation is. We talked to Kelvin Bell on the Wednesday assistant coach Zoom interview and said the same thing. He didn't practice today. YA didn't, but boy, coming off such a performance that he had, a Minnesota kid out of Marshall, he wants to be out there. But does Iowa feel confident going up against this Minnesota team coming in, even as good as they can be? And again, Mo Ibrahim's not there anymore, and thank goodness, because everything he did last year, and I know Minnesota really felt like that was a game they had, except for just a couple late turnovers, because Iowa wasn't stopping Mo Ibrahim.
I gave Mike this trivia earlier. Did you tell Mitch what I said about the home?
No, this is a surprise.
Surprise! Here it is. Do you know the last time that Minnesota beat Iowa at Kinnick?
99.
Well, that was fun. Well,
The only reason I know that is because Fleck brought that up immediately in his
really?
press.
It was in the Minnesota game preview that they sent out too.
It's
so.
been a while, though.
1999. Kirk's first year was the last time Minnesota beat Iowa at Kinnick Stadium. That's crazy.
It's really, and there have been, listen, there's been some back and forth. There's been some really close games. There's been some blowouts on either side. I mean, the last Minnesota win in this series was 2014, and Minnesota won 51-14. Just wild. Fleck also pointed out in his Monday press availability that when people talk about playing complementary football, he believes Iowa does that better than anybody, not because it's like this perfect balance of offense, defense, special teams. He says it's essentially knowing what you're really good at and playing to those strengths, which I think for Iowa going into this, you've got that great defense. You've got, we'll call it what it is, the best punter in the country in Torrey Taylor. And if you can flip field position the way Iowa can and then have a stout defense and maybe get 2-3 scoring drives out of your offense, you're playing to your strengths and complementing each other well. Like, maybe it's not perfectly balanced, but I think that's what Iowa and Minnesota both feel like they want to do. And it's just going to be, I think, whoever is able to find any sort of maybe big play on offense.
Yeah.
And Iowa and Minnesota, they've still got Brevin Spanford. He doesn't have the numbers that he has the last few years, but he's, I think, a 6-year tight end for them. He probably came into the year, I would have ranked him above Lachey in terms of just best tight end of the Big Ten, probably. They've still got weapons. Daniel Jackson there as well.
I think the difference of the game is going to be Callie McManus in a way, just like he's thrown 6 interceptions this year, been sacked 8 times. I don't know. I could see them, like, this could be like a 2 or 3 pick game for him where they try to throw it a little bit, doesn't work. With him piling up some sacks a little bit, Iowa's defense just continues to press in that backfield. I think that's going to be,
I wonder if the defense is going to bring pressure like they did when Mordecai went out, just to try and speed that up and make him make some mistakes back there.
Yep.
it really was effective, I thought. And obviously they did, I didn't think they blitzed as much when Mordecai was in there. So maybe it was more of, hey, this young kid's in, let's go after him. But I wonder, like, if they just start doing that, and early on to see if he can make the mistakes. Because I agree with you, if Callie McManus turns the ball over, then I don't see a way Iowa loses. But
it does feel like more so. I mean, we've seen the stats of Iowa when they get out to an 8-point lead. I think whoever scores first has a massive advantage in this game because, again, either side is looking to just pound the ball and get out of town. So it's, again, that over-under just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. It'll be fun. Hey, that was an entertaining 13-10 game last year up in Minneapolis. It was -1 wind chill, but it was a blast. Then you got the Minnesota defense, which boasts one of the best safeties in the country in Tyler Newman. But this is a team that, look, you can run a little bit on them. 138 yards a game, 10th in the Big Ten. Newman, 3 interceptions, 2 in that opener against Nebraska, 4 PBUs, 8 interceptions as a team. That's tied for second in the Big Ten. Cody Lindenberg, you haven't seen him in 2023, but he was an all-Big Ten linebacker in 2022. Same boat as Darius Taylor on the offensive side. Fleck basically says, hey, wait till 12:30 and the injury report coming in before Saturday's game. But he could be in line, and what a boost that would be to the defense for the Golden Gophers. Now, we talked a little bit about the wide receiver numbers and if they're even going to start becoming tight ends, at least in terms of route running. This has definitely become a unit that is making their hay more with sweeps and blocks rather than receptions. We talked to Mr. Sweep himself, Seth Anderson, yesterday just about that shift in kind of responsibilities and hang your hat on doing those things too rather than racking up numbers. He says the room is really embracing that, not defining themselves from the statistical, but more the win column.
That's what it is. I mean, you just got to do your job at the end of the day. And if it means go out there and block 20 snaps, I mean, you got to just go and do it because we winning. So we got to just do whatever helps the team.
You do a lot of that at Charleston Southern. I'm guessing there was less run blocking.
Yeah, there's definitely less of that, of course. But, I mean, we here now. We 6-1. We know we fighting for something. So
6-1, we're fighting for something. And one of the key moments that led me to asking him just about, I guess, wide receiver room morale is you had a great shot of, it was that one with Eric smiling, talking to Hayden Large walking out the field in Camp Randall, but Seth walked behind and Seth's just beaming. And Seth strikes me as a super happy dude, but you can see Nico out there was happy, Deontay's happy, Caleb Brown was having a good time. As much as we made these predictions for what the passing game could be, should be, whatever that means, this does seem like a group that just says, all right, hey, we're winning, and what we're being asked to do is helping that win. We're not going to worry about what catches we have. And that kind of strikes me like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's been such a big storyline that I don't think we would have predicted that storyline coming into the season as far as lack of wide receiver touches.
We didn't. By a pretty wide.
I think it all changes once Cade went out. Really, like I feel like if Cade's still in, maybe it's a different story. But at the same time, like when he was in, there wasn't a lot. It was all the tight ends then too. So I mean, kudos to them because I feel like a college football D1 wide receiver, like if you're not getting
that's
touches,
not every room.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
not.
Yeah. And that's I asked him about that. I said, it'd be so easy for, and it's just one guy who's asking for his targets, and that can just seep out through the whole room. I really genuinely believe, and I don't think Seth's blowing smoke in any way. They're just like, yeah, like we're winning. We're 6-1. We're in pursuit of something special, and guys are just, and it probably helps having veterans like Nico and Deontay in there. Just like, listen, if this is what we have to do to run the table and win the West, like we'll block and sweep. We'll do whatever we have to.
Certainly helps when you're 6-1 and when you've already locked up a bowl spot.
It changes everything for sure.
Yeah, I do love to see that with those guys, that they're supporting their teammates and they're happy, they're enjoying it. They're happy to set some blocks when the team's winning. But if this team was 3-4 right now, what? It
would change a lot of stuff.
I do think though, like at the end of the day, if this team runs a table, they're going to have to get them involved at some point. Because
will they?
I don't know. I said this last week about the turnovers, and then it happened, and it's like if I am one of those opposing coaches, I just put 9 guys in the box and be like, we're not going to let you run it. Beat us. I don't care if you beat us over the air. Like
Johnny Pascuzzi's going to come out there and toast you.
You want Hayden Large to hit that wheel route, don't you? They did it against
I
Iowa State.
would love that still. I mean, I wouldn't be upset with that.
Hayden Large is going to have a touchdown at some point. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. I'm hyped for that kid. All right, we got a lot to look at in the Big Ten coming up with our picks right after this.
Bauman's has been selling quality clothing for over 100 years. We carry a wide selection of men's and women's clothing. We recently expanded to offer a great selection of shoes and accessories. We have the area's best selection of both big and tall and can outfit anyone from the farm to the office to a casual night on the town. Bauman's is a proud family-owned business, and we're excited to continue the tradition of quality clothing and unmatched customer service since 1909. Visit us for all your clothing needs.
All right, now to the time of the show where we really establish our expertise. 17, 22, and 2 for me so far in our Big Ten picks. 0 and 18, 21 and 2. Mike, the only
Mr.
one.
500.
Yeah, look at this guy making fake money on his picks. 20, 19, and 2. We got a fun little slate across the Big Ten coming up this week. Maybe the game of the year so far. For my money. Fake money or not, it'd be the.
I really want to watch
this.
this.
This is gonna be. Yeah, I'm gonna watch.
You can do that on Fox 28.
Oh, good plug, Michael. Number 7, Penn State, a 4-point dog heading to the horseshoe to go up against number 3, Ohio State. The winner, right there with Michigan in the Big Ten East race. This is going to be a great one on Fox 28, 11 a.m. kickoff from Columbus. Who we got?
I've heard this game is on Fox 28.
We haven't confirmed.
Boy, Kyle McCord's been great as Ohio State's quarterback. 11 touchdowns, just 1 interception thrown this year. Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know if he's maybe not quite lived up to the hype. I felt like he was going to be maybe a Heisman finalist.
I think it took McCord a little while to get going.
It really did.
He could be getting there, but so wait, the +4 means Ohio State is the favorite. Is that right? Okay. I would definitely pick Penn State then. I think that Penn State could come out there and win this game. I mean, maybe I've just got black and gold colored glasses and the way that they whooped up on Iowa that Penn State just looks like such a college football playoff team. But I think that this feels like a Penn State team that could go undefeated.
I think that's fair. I think Ohio State struggled a little bit. They obviously missing C.J. Stroud this year. Kyle McCord, like you said, took a while for him to get settled into what they're trying to do on offense. It makes me pause that it's at the shoe, but I think Penn State, who really, outside of Iowa, probably their best win so far, hasn't played one of those top-tier teams in college football. So this is going to be like
against UMass.
Yeah.
Covered in a big way.
Covered by like 22 points or something.
Boy,
I think Penn State actually finally takes the monkey off the back.
How's West Virginia doing? Are they not good?
They're better than they were supposed to be.
Okay.
They're probably, I think they're a borderline bowl team this year.
Yeah.
I just realized I'd be tied with Owen in the picks if I didn't have UMass +42. I had to try to be a hero. Speaking of trying to be a hero, I'm going to take Penn State +4 as well. This is going to be a really good game. I think they'll keep it within a field goal. I don't know if they win or not. They were my pick to win the East at the very beginning of the season. I expected them to run the table. Ohio State's on the upturn. Penn State hasn't done anything to not deserve to. I mean, they're on the same trajectory. Drew Aller's been great. But seeing what Drew Aller, and granted it was at home, but what he did against Iowa's defense, just taking what's given, against a veteran Ohio State defense, still I trust the Nittany Lions to go in there and maybe change the narrative of what they've been the best third-place team in college football for years now because of Michigan and Ohio State. I think this is a big step for them getting over the hump just because Ohio State's a little banged up too. They were banged up last week and maybe not back to 100%. Penn State's been rolling, so let's see if James Franklin and company get over the hump. Rutgers, a 5-point favorite, heading to Bloomington to take on Indiana. Rutgers had the big comeback against Michigan State last week. Indiana has just been struggling so far in 2023.
Indiana, boy, these guys cannot find a way to stop anybody offensively. 52 points given up to Michigan in the last game, 44 before that, 27 they gave up in a win against Akron. Rutgers is starting to feel more and more like, boy, that's a team that could come in and beat Iowa at Kinnick. I mean, that's a good team, really good Rutgers team. And so, just 5 points they're favored by.
You don't just go into Bloomington and get wins.
You do go into Bloomington. Definitely Rutgers.
When Owen doesn't like a team, he will scorch earth that team.
Just probably going to put Rutgers in there for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Rutgers too. It's more so Indiana. I think Rutgers is somewhat, I don't want to call them paper tiger because they have got some, I don't even know if I would call these wins impressive, but the win, the come from behind aspect of their win last week was impressive.
Really, I mean, they played bad in that
Against
first
Michigan
half.
State.
They turned it around. I mean, that's a team that doesn't blink when they have a bad half.
Yeah.
Something to say for that. Rutgers -5 as well. Wisconsin coming off the loss of not just the game to Iowa, but their quarterback. Sounds like Tanner Mordecai will be out for a while. They hit the road to Case and Frericks. Illinois fighting Illini. 2.5-point dogs, though, at home. The Illini are to the Badgers. It's a 2:30 kick on FS1. Rutgers, Indiana, if you want to flip between that. And Penn State and Ohio State on Fox 28. That's 11 a.m. kick on BTN. But FS1 for the Badgers and Illini.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this just because Mordecai is out, and I think if Mordecai was healthy, the spread would be closer to 7, maybe 8. I still think I didn't hate what I saw from Locke last week, and I don't have that much faith in Illinois, so I think Wisconsin still wins the game.
All right, we got to get Kaysen.
Kaysen, what do you think? You like Illinois this weekend?
We're live.
He says it's a tough game.
Yeah. All right. The Illini fan thinks they'll lose.
All right, so Kaysen's got the Illini plus 2.5. That's a bold take.
I am definitely going the route of Wisconsin in this one, especially with. I'm really surprised at that spread. 2.5 seems like a pretty narrow margin, but.
Did you not see the fortitude of the Illini last week?
Luke Altmaier's thrown 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions this year.
If
Boy, that guy throws
Altmaier,
picks.
talk to Kaysen about if Altmaier doesn't throw interceptions, man. He'd be something.
We still cannot figure this Illinois team out. I mean, I feel like we've been trying all year to see, like, what the hell is this Illinois team, and why can't we figure out when they're going to win or lose? But this week, I'm going Wisconsin.
I'm going to take a swing. I'm going to take the Illini. I think the Mordecai loss is big. Again, same thing. Braylon Allen was getting beat up in that Iowa game, and I don't
That's
know
true.
If he's not 100%. I think maybe Altmaier cleans it up this week, and I'll stick with Kaysen and his Illini, even though he didn't actually go there. Anyways, Northwestern heads to Nebraska. Wildcats an 11-point dog in Lincoln 2:30 kick on BTN.
This one's tough only because Northwestern has some sneaky, like, surprising results all year. They've almost lost to was it Wagner a couple weeks ago, or Howard? I mean,
Howard, yeah.
They beat Minnesota, which I watched the end of that game, and I'm just like, what is
Ben
happening
Bryant
right
was
now?
on one at the end of that game. That was wild.
They always seem to play Nebraska tough. I think they'll cover, but I think Nebraska wins by like 6 or 7.
Sure.
How do you guys feel about Heinrich Harburg?
He's
Big
a
Heinrich Harburg fan out of Kearney, Nebraska.
He's a hard-nosed kid. I mean, they're a team that's also not going to throw it a whole heck of a lot, but he's a big threat on the ground.
With an 11-point spread, I think I'm going Northwestern. I think that they could keep that one tight. And, I mean, it's just to the point of the year where Nebraska starts, Nebraska fans really start feeling like, all right, we got something going. Matt Rule's going to turn this team around, and then they just lose to Northwestern. So I'm feeling the Wildcats.
This is a tough one because I think this could either be. Man, I'm going to take Nebraska to cover. I think. I don't think it'll be pretty necessarily. I think this could be like a 2-touchdown win, and it might be a late one to seal it. But man, we said at the beginning of the year, Nebraska's going to maybe start getting things together, and they've got their quarterback now.
This could be an important one for them to get to a bowl for the first time in a while.
Big one there for sure. I like Northwestern. It's fun to see them 3-3 under Ryan Braun, former UNI assistant. But there we go. We'll get to the other 2:30 game of importance here in a bit, but 6:30 kick on NBC. Michigan, a 24-point favorite, the second-ranked Wolverines, as they head to play for the Paul Bunyan Trophy in East Lansing against Michigan State.
Michigan has scored no fewer than 30 points in a game at all this year. Their lowest output was in their season opener against ECU. 52 points in each of their last 2 games against Indiana and Minnesota. Michigan is picking up steam. As much as I kind of doubted their abilities in the preseason with Harbaugh coming off, missing their first few games. J.J. McCarthy's been great. Blake Corum, 12 rushing touchdowns Corum's already got this year. Man, that kid's good. I'm going Michigan to really run wild.
You know what? I was going to go Michigan just to your point, like they've just been wild this year with the amount of points they've been scoring. I think this one is going to be I have no real analysis other than college football is going to happen. I think it's going to be like a 20-point win.
That's
So
an
I think
excellent
Michigan,
analysis, though. Dude, it's,
Sources tell me.
you know, it's the old adage that kind of gets a
In a
little tired, but
rivalry.
it's true. Like, rivalries are weird, man. Especially that, having covered that one a few times, that's
Mm-hmm.
one where just like anything can, you know, Rocky Lombardi led a good Spartans team over a really good Michigan team that one year where it was just like streak patterns over and over and over and just threw bombs and it paid off. So it's
Even if it's 45-22,
it's a
still
rivalry where
blowout.
anything can happen.
Yeah.
Having said all that, I'm taking Michigan to cover because Michigan, as Joel Klatt has described them, is a boa constrictor, and they just look like they do what they want when they want. Minnesota helped a little bit with the 2 pick sixes, but they are just as good a team in America as anybody. I think if Ohio State beats Penn State, I might like Ohio State a little bit more than Michigan in the East, but still, like, Michigan looks so good. But we turn our attention back finally to Iowa City. The Hawkeyes, a 3.5-point favorite over Minnesota, 2:30 kick on NBC. Iowa trying to win for the
Ninth straight.
ninth straight time in the rivalry.
Yeah.
As I had to break the news to Sebastian Castro that it's like your senior class hasn't lost to Minnesota. He goes, "Oh, I thought you meant like over their coaching regime there." Like, "Oh, that too." Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So who we got in this one? Hawkeyes. I think this opened at 6.5 on FanDuel and has dropped to 3.5. So that
I think a lot of that had to do with just I don't see many points out of this. You know, I think Iowa could cover easily a 6-point spread and it go under 30 points. You know, Iowa though, I mean, I just don't have that much faith in Minnesota. I mean, look at their wins, and I think Owen, you said in the Eye on the Hawks broadcast, which airs on Thursday, they have only beat one Power 5 team. Obviously, they play a tough schedule. UNC on the road, Michigan at home, which Michigan's one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah, that
Got
weird
blasted
comeback
by
win
those two.
against Nebraska's their only Power 5 win this year.
Yeah, got beat by Northwestern, who hasn't really shown much this year.
beat Eastern Michigan, and then
Yeah.
that Louisiana. I feel bad framing it like this. Louisiana has a great quarterback who's a true freshman, and we just live in an age now where I watch him like, boy, he's going to get offered some sort of
Yeah.
NIL deal for a Power 5 school. I hope for his sake he stays in Louisiana because that'd be awesome to see a group of 5 rise. But that's their other win, and they had a little bit of a struggle against the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, so unless, the Hawkeyes go turnover happy, which they're not a team like that, unless there's a couple of fluke fumbles, I see Iowa covering this.
I am inclined to agree. I think that is a very narrow margin. But honestly, one of the biggest things that kind of seals it for me is, again, just looking at that run of games that Iowa's won against Minnesota at Kinnick for consecutive years, however many that's been since 1999. That's a pretty impressive run. Like Minnesota you just don't walk into Kinnick, as some might say. Even though I think in the preseason I predicted Minnesota to beat Iowa, the way that Minnesota's played overall the first half of the season, I think I like Iowa to win by a little bit. Actually, I'm sorry. I do like Iowa to win.
Iowa by
I'm going to take Minnesota, though, to keep it within 3.5. Sorry.
Yeah, I think all these wins the last few years at Kinnick for Iowa, I believe, have been one-score games. 21, I think it was something like, wasn't it 28-22? I could look it up. I have a computer here.
Yeah.
But I know 2019 was like 23-19 when Minnesota came in undefeated off that Penn State win, and then 2017 was 14-7. Noah Fant had the long catch from Nate Stanley there. 2021 Iowa, Minnesota. People have already looked it up probably if they want to. Yeah, 27-22. Which that was the one where Keegan Johnson caught the screen pass and spun out of a tackle and went for a score.
Alex Padilla started that game, I believe.
Yeah, he did. Charlie Jones had the 75-yard touchdown, so don't say Charlie Jones wasn't part of the passing game at Iowa. He was Big Ten returner of the year, folks.
Was that his 100-yard game?
That might have been.
Charlie was the last Iowa receiver with the 100-yard receiving game.
I think
It probably was, because he had that long catch, too, where he laid out for one to set up Iowa in the red zone. They probably got a field goal out of that. Or maybe that was Padilla's rushing touchdown. I was there. That's the only reason I remember all this. Minnesota wants to win this game so bad. I know it, and I know they play close. I think it stays a one-score game, but I think it's going to be 4 or 6 or something like that. So I'm going to take Iowa to cover. It's going to be a heck of a game. It's going to be, boy, if you like throwback, hit him in the mouth football and all the cliches that come with all that in the old Big Ten, I think you're going to get it. I do think there might be, whether it's on defense. But I think Iowa will have some big play at some point, whether it's a pick six or a fumble recovery or a punt return touchdown, or maybe Deacon airs one out and hits Seth or Nico or somebody like that. I just feel like the narrative is too much about how it's just going to be 3 yards, cloud of dust or whatever, just within the trenches. I feel like, and it could happen on Minnesota's side too. They got some home run threats of just somebody's going to make a big play that's akin to LeSean ripping off one for 82 yards, and that might stand as the cornerstone for whoever wins this game.
There was a great line I heard in a podcast once that you can get a sense of what it feels like to be a ghost when you're listening to a podcast and the hosts get a piece of trivia wrong that you know, and you're like shouting, "No, it's that!" But they can't hear you. They're never going to learn. And that's why Mitch looks up the information on his computer. That's why it's helpful to have.
Oh, I was like, did I get something wrong?
No, I mean,
heart was dropping out of my mouth.
As you were looking that up, I'm like, if people are shouting at their podcast right now, I'm like, that's.
Yeah, that's what this earpiece is just hearing everybody's comments typed out in AI.
Preseason, do you recall, I know, again, I picked Minnesota to beat Iowa in the preseason. Did one of you as well pick?
I did not.
I didn't. I picked Illinois to beat Iowa, which I'm really reconsidering right now.
Hey, they play them every week because it's fun to find out just how exactly things go.
Perhaps next week we're going to have our...
I think for the bye week, we'll...
Mid-season bye week stuff, we'll recap some of those preseason picks.
See how smart we were and how not smart we was. So what a fun journey that'll be. Of course, we'll be back here Sunday at noon to recap the battle for the Floyd of Rosedale and everything else around the Big Ten. So again, that'll be the live stream up on YouTube, on the Iowa News Now YouTube page. Of course, we'll also be able to have the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, just all the stuff there. It's Game 8. You should know all this by now, but we'll keep plugging it because we're nice like that. We will see you Sunday here on Eye on the Hawks. For Mike and Owen, I'm Mitch. Catch you then.